It was a final night before his execution. His hands were shackled, his fate sealed in the hands of those who had sentenced him. The room was cold, the walls bearing witness to years of despair and fear. The clanging of distant prison doors echoed like the ticking of an unseen clock, each sound inching him closer to his last moments. Antonio's face, though marked with the hardships of his life, was calm, not peaceful, not at ease, but resigned. His eyes, dull and vacant for the most part, now sparkled with a strange intensity. It was the night before his execution, and all that remained were the hours. He had asked for one last thing, a request that stunned everyone who heard it. He had asked to see the Virgin Mary. The guards, accustomed to men on the brink of death making final requests, whether for a last meal, a letter to their loved ones, or just a few more minutes of life, paused at his words. This was different. No one had made such a request in years. In fact, many of the men who came through this prison had long since lost their faith, if they ever had it. But Antonio had a different kind of conviction. They debated for a moment, their murmurs of disbelief filling the room. Then, with a reluctant sigh, the warden gave the order. The request would be granted. As the door creaked open, a figure stepped inside. She was no priest, no nun, but someone who claimed to have come in the name of the Virgin Mary. Dressed in simple but immaculate white robes, her face was serene, her eyes calm. Her presence radiated a quiet authority, a peace that seemed to break through the tension of the room. Antonio's breath caught. For a moment, the world seemed to hold still. "Why did you ask for this?" The woman's voice was soft, almost like a whisper, but it carried a weight that was hard to ignore. Antonio's voice was hoarse, as if the years of hardship had taken a toll. I need to know that there's something beyond this life. I need to see that there's hope for someone like me." Her eyes softened, and she stepped closer, as if she could understand the depth of his despair. Then she did something that no one expected. She reached out and placed her hand gently on his forehead. It wasn't the touch that stunned everyone. It wasn't even the fact that she was standing in a prison cell, talking to a condemned man. It was a light that suddenly filled the room, a soft, golden glow that seemed to come from nowhere. The air grew warmer, and for a split second, everything changed. Antonio's eyes widened, and for the first time in years, something stirred in his chest, a hope, a spark. It was as if, in that moment, the chains of his past had loosened. His heart pounded, but it was no longer from fear. It was from something he hadn't felt in years. Belief. "I see her," he whispered, his voice trembling. The guards and the warden stood frozen, not knowing what to make of the situation. The figure in white smiled gently, as if everything was unfolding exactly as it was meant to. The soft glow began to fade, leaving only the ordinary light of the prison cell behind. Antonio blinked, the vision fading. But the feeling lingered. It was something far deeper than the fleeting moment of vision. He looked up at the woman in front of him. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice quieter, but full of a new kind of serenity. The woman nodded, her face unreadable but serene. "Now you live with the peace you sought. That is what you asked for, isn't it?" And with those words, she turned to leave, the door closing behind her. Antonio, once burdened with guilt and regret, sat back in his chair, the weight of years lifting off his shoulders. His face softened into a peaceful expression, and for the first time in a long time, he closed his eyes, not with fear, but with the knowledge that whatever came next, he had found something he never thought possible. Generation 2. The next morning, the guards came to take Antonio to his execution. But when they entered his cell, they found something that shocked them to the core. Antonio was sitting in his chair, his hands still shackled, but his face was serene, almost glowing. It was as if the night before had transformed him in some inexplicable way. His gaze was no longer the lost, desperate eyes of a man about to die. There was a peace about him that unnerved even the toughest of the guards. "Antonio," the warden called gently, approaching him cautiously. "It's time." But Antonio didn't respond. His eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling gently as if in deep thought. The warden stepped closer, his voice softening. "Antonio, are you awake?" Then a strange thing happened. Antonio's eyes fluttered open, but they were different, full of clarity and calm. His gaze met the warden's, and he smiled faintly, the kind of smile that only someone who had found peace could give. "I'm ready," he whispered. It was the warden's turn to hesitate, his brows furrowing. He had seen many men face their execution with fear, with anger, with tears, but never with such serenity. "Antonio," the warden asked, struggling to understand, "how can you be so calm?" Antonio's smile deepened, and his voice, though soft, carried a strength that seemed almost unnatural for someone in his position. "I've seen the Virgin Mary," he said simply, "and she showed me that peace is possible, even in the face of death." The warden's breath caught. He had no response. How could he? As the guards moved to escort Antonio down the long hallway toward the execution chamber, something extraordinary happened. Word spread quickly among the prison staff, and soon even the prison chaplain arrived. He had heard what happened the night before, the strange request, the woman in white, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper at play. He had known Antonio as a broken man, but what he saw before him now was nothing like the prisoner he had known. And so, as the final moments approached, Antonio stood tall, his shackles now seeming like nothing more than a distant memory. The prison chaplain, who had been reluctant to offer any comfort to the condemned, now found himself drawn to a man who had once been lost. He stood silently at his side, offering no prayers, no last rites, only a quiet respect. As the executioner stepped forward, Antonio faced a crowd of witnesses with a calm that left him in stunned silence. His final words were simple but powerful. "I found peace, and I wish for you to find it too." With that, the room went silent, and Antonio's last breath was taken, not in fear, but in peace. What do you think? Could Antonio's last moments be a lesson for all of us? How often do we let fear steal our peace in the face of inevitable endings? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that will leave you thinking long after the video ends.